I've tried just about every single way to make money. Jobs, side hustles, trading, real estate, social media, service businesses, and some paid well, but honestly, most just felt productive but slightly capped out financially. So today I'm going to be ranking every single way I've ever made money, no mercy, based off leverage, stress, and whether it worked out for me. Before we get started, I want to lay some ground rules for you. This isn't about what sounds impressive, it's about what actually held up over time. And for that reason, we're going to start at the bottom, and we're going to start with the F tier, time for money, no leverage jobs. Time for money jobs that I've worked include being a gas station worker, being a handyman for this company called TaskRabbit, and I was also a high school teacher when I was in pharmacy school. I thought these jobs would build momentum, but they paid exactly what they promised. Money for hours, and when the hours stopped, the income stopped. And it was also very low dollar per hour. I was making around 8 to 16 bucks per hour. There was no leverage, no compounding, and no exit. And the lesson is there's honest work, there's great work, but it's honestly not scalable financially. And that's why this unfortunately belongs in F tier. The next job we're going to be talking about is pharmacy, climbing the W-2 ladder. I was originally a pharmacy clerk, pharmacy intern, pharmacy technician, pharmacist, and eventually pharmacy manager. So the whole shebang. I thought I would climb the corporate ladder and it would unlock a bunch of freedom, but the pay was just great and stable and respectful, but it was capped again by my hours. And it left me feeling really tied to the role. Like my identity was just stuck to this role. The lesson is stability without upside is still risk no matter how much higher paying I was. So I made around 70 bucks per hour at this job. And that's why it belongs in F tier. The next job, it felt smart, but it paid inconsistently, was being a stock trader. I thought this was intellectual leverage, but in reality, it was just time intensive and emotionally expensive. Any edge I thought I had disappeared really fast because there are so many different stock market traders who are watching this constantly, and they're just better than me, unfortunately. Feeling smart is not the same as getting rich, and that's why I put this in D tier. I didn't make that much money as a stock trader. Being a crypto trader, I thought volatility meant opportunity. Sometimes it paid, but mostly it demanded also a lot of my attention, just like being a stock trader. No moat, no durability, just cycles. And the lesson is entertainment is not a business model. I lost probably around $300,000 trying this. But it still belongs in D tier because I have seen some of my friends do really well with it. Now we're going to move on to physical arbitrage. I actually used to go and scour the Facebook marketplace all the time and see if I could find really good deals for bikes or sofas or random items that I could fix up, clean up, remarket, take better pictures, and sell to someone else for a higher price. I call it physical arbitrage or bike flipping on Facebook Marketplace. And I thought it would scale. One thing it did do really well was it taught me negotiation skills, margins, valuable skills, but every dollar required another transaction. And the lesson is good reps don't equal a good business. And I did this for about 6 months. I was working my job as a pharmacist and I made a couple $1,000s, but I'm going to put it into C tier just because of how unscalable it is and how unreliable it is to actually find products on Facebook Marketplace. Airbnb arbitrage, I thought this was real estate, but it's honestly real estate without ownership. I still do it just because it's so easy and it's part of where I started. But in reality, it's basically contracts stacked on platform risks. Like Airbnb has a lot of risk. If they took you off the platform, that means you lost a lot of money. So that's your new boss. One policy change and your whole business model breaks. And the lesson is if you don't own the asset, you don't control income. So there's some risk in that. I did make probably about $300,000 doing this over a few years. But again, I don't own the asset and I don't really like how reliant I am on one platform. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a C tier. If you ever want to expand and make it a little better, you can do direct bookings or expand to multiple platforms like VRBO or booking.com. C tier again. Instagram influencer. I thought attention would turn into massive bucks and wealth and fame. But what I realized, it just sometimes paid, not very well. If you look here, here's a picture of how much I made in December, $3. Algorithms change, audiences move on. And the lesson is attention is rented, not owned. What it does do is put you in a really good position for partnerships, sponsorships, and actually advertising your business. So if you have a service-based business or you sell something, this is a really great place to advertise those things because normally you have to pay for advertisement. Here it is for free. For that reason, I'm going to give it B tier to A- tier, but if I had to choose B tier, just because we don't really make that much money off advertisement and it's a ton of work, guys. I've been doing it for about 8 years and still have not gotten the traction that I've wanted. Personal finance coach, I thought helping people with money would naturally scale and the work is super meaningful. I had a lot of people reach out during this time, but the ceiling is super low unless you productize and you're still the bottleneck. You need something else to sell on top of it, whether it's a dead box or an index fund plan or like some sort of real estate fund that you want to also promote. But good money overall, easy to start, but take some time to actually build up and see your first real paycheck. Impact doesn't always guarantee leverage, unfortunately. For that reason, I'm going to give it B tier also. Real estate educator. I thought teaching real estate would multiply my income, and it works definitely. Like teaching on real estate has gotten me indoors that I would have not had been able to get in otherwise. But trust is like super fragile in this space, and you constantly have to prove you're legit, which is really freaking annoying. But education only scales as fast as credibility. That's why I think it's actually more important to do the work of actually investing and buying real estate than actually just talk about it on social media. And that's why I make such big moves in actual real estate versus social media. And the byproduct ends up being I have decent content because I do the work and I show it. I just need probably a better team and editing. But B tier, property management company. So I technically own a property management company. It's technically co-hosting for Airbnb hosts. And I thought this was perfectly with owning real estate. But in reality, it's low margin, people heavy, emotionally expensive, and it can scale, but only if you love operational pain. Scalability doesn't mean enjoyable or worth it. And I have made a lot of money. Like we've generated over $1 million in gross income, but we only keep about 20% of that. So around $200,000. For that reason, for all the headaches I've experienced and all the random nightmares that I've had and like, am I going to get in trouble for this? I give it B tier still. The next thing we're going to talk about is my design company. I love this thing. I happen to have a design company because I'm also a real estate company that helps people buy rural Airbnbs, and this builds in perfectly for helping solve that problem. So many people will come to me like, oh, I don't know how to design a house. I'm around to make it look nice for a short-term rental. Well, this solves that problem. And I thought design would be just like another time for money service, but what changed everything was hiring and systems. And honestly, I think this could be a thing for almost all businesses. Once you have the hiring and systems in place, it makes it so much easier. Once delivery didn't depend on me, my margins stabilized. I can like track how much my clients would bring in every time I was hired for a new design job. It was really easy to figure out how much to spend on ads and how many clients I needed to bring in order to hit a certain milestone. We definitely made around like $400,000, $500,000 doing this. The lesson is though, services work, then systems replace those talents. So for that reason, because this has worked so well for me, I'm going to give it A tier. Next, we're going to talk about being a real Airbnb coach. So specifically, I teach in rural real estate. And I thought this would be like the perfect hybrid, high income, high trust, real results. But if I disappear, again, the problem is revenue slows. It almost like reminds me of my days of being a pharmacist again. Lesson learned from that is if you're the product, you're the ceiling. The way to fix this for me, which I haven't quite gotten there yet, is actually hiring more very educated coaches in real estate. But because a lot of my experience comes from being in real estate for 9 years and my family being in real estate for about 40 years, it's kind of hard to find someone at a reasonable price with this skill set that I can pay maybe $100 per hour to teach my students. But this will be probably the next thing I'm working on to actually hire, like as I did my design company. It is at A tier, but it's borderline S tier once I get to that spot because it feeds into so many different things that you can actually make money from. But A tier for now. Long-term rental investor. This is actually what I started doing. So I bought quite a few short-term rentals post 2021. But before then, I was investing purely in long-term rentals. And I thought this would be super boring. And it was, unfortunately. But boring means usually durable, especially because people have been buying homes and renting it out to people for thousands of years. You know, this is not anything new. People need a place to stay. It's low stress, it's predictable income, real ownership, but the cash flow is just so little and it was so boring. I kind of like gave up in trying to buy more long-term rentals. But to be honest, if you do this well and you find the right deals and you're a little bit patient and you have access to a lot of capital, boring beats fragile. And for that reason, I'm still going to give long-term rentals A tier, especially if you go into like the multifamily route and you get really good at raising money. And then the last thing, which is my favorite, being a rural Airbnb investor. I didn't expect this to work as well as it did until I bought this home you guys have probably heard me talk about in West Virginia. And that home was $170,000. I put $20,000 down to own it and control it. I raised a bunch of money to actually fund the furniture and design. My monthly mortgage was $1,000. Yes, $1,000. And every single month since launching in July 2024, it's made around $6,000 on average monthly. That is more than enough to cover my $1,000 mortgage. It was a low down payment and it has a compelling story where I can actually pitch it to other investors and they get excited about it. I could pay those investors a set 12% return and they're really happy about that. But I'm also very happy about the amount of money I make on my rental because it ends up being higher than 12%. And another thing that's cool, it's not like arbitrage. You actually do own the asset, real assets like this physical building, real demand. You have more control. You can't get kicked out by your landlord. There's multiple levers I can pull, so I have tons of control. I can change the pricing, I can change the systems, I can adjust the designs if I find that one type of design is doing worse. And once set up, it doesn't require daily effort. And because I built my own design property management company, I don't actually have to do too much. The lesson is the best income survives your absence. And because I focused on making sure this whole system is pretty much smooth and automated, I give it an S tier. So looking back at this list, the pattern is kind of obvious. Hopefully what you guys got from it is that anything that needed my constant attention, that needs your constant attention, will eventually cap out. And anything built on ownership and systems keep paying quietly. And that's why I think you should invest those. And that's why those are the best jobs. I stopped chasing income that needed me, and that changed everything.